politics, and Mitt Romney sticking with his strategy of staying hot on President Obama's trail. Romney just finished speaking at a closed national plant in Lorain, Ohio, not far from where the president spoke yesterday, promoting his economic plan and job training program. The president visited that very same plant during the 2008 campaign, and it was closed down several months later, leaving 58 workers unemployed.
I will use every ounce of my energy not to improve my golf handicap, but instead to go to work to help the American people go to work. I will use every ounce of my skill and experience to help America be strong again.
Let's bring in our News Nation political panel, nationally syndicated radio talk show host and MSNBC contributor Michael Smerconish, and nationally syndicated radio talk show host Steve Deace, who has endorsed Newt Gingrich. We're going to talk about Mr. Gingrich later. He's still getting that Secret Service detail costing thousands of dollars. But Michael, let me start off with you quickly on this hot on his trail. Mitt Romney following the president through these key battleground states, Ohio mentioning being one of them. Is that a smart strategy, logical strategy?
I think it's a smart and logical strategy. There's also nothing new about it. And notice that everywhere he goes, he's talking about the economy. That CBS New York Times survey, which shows them deadlocked at 46-46, where only 29% say that they like Mitt Romney, nevertheless has them deadlocked because the economy is so important to the American people.
And Steve, let me bring you in. I want to play the president's remarks this time yesterday, where he refers to the hard work that he and the First Lady face climbing the ladder of life, and he refers to silver spoons. Let me play that.
Somebody gave me an education. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Michelle wasn't. But somebody gave us a chance.
So, Steve, Romney obviously taking issue with that, saying that, you know, basically that people are blaming him for his father's success, but he is a self-made man here. You are a conservative. You're not a fan of Mitt Romney. Will this silver spoon battle stick on him?
Well, with the president, if he's alluding to Romney, if that's a veiled shot at Romney, what he's alluding to is the exit polling data in the Republican presidential primary, which found that consistently when he had to go head-to-head with Newt Gingrich and Rick Santorum, when the race was still competitive, Tamron, consistently in states that did not have high Mormon populations, Mitt Romney struggled to win Republican voters in primaries and battleground states that made less than $100,000 a year. In other words, what most folks would consider middle-class voters. And this has been one of the fears that I have been raising on this program for the last several months, which is if someone is struggling to win middle-class voters in his own party, I don't know how he does it more successfully when he reaches across the aisle. But I would also make the point that I could take the president's standard and turn it around on him. Many conservatives will say, well, you know, he was a college professor, he was a community organizer, he was a state legislator, he was a U.S. senator, he's been in the public sector his entire life. He's never ran a company, he's never created jobs. What would he know about what creates jobs and runs the economy? And his record the last 4 years seems to indicate not very much.
But with all those things you just named regarding the president, you still don't like Mitt Romney.
Well, Mitt Romney, this is the problem when we have two candidates who philosophically do not offer the American people stark contrast. We end up arguing around the margins. My elitist is better than your elitist.
Other Republicans who've now formed the circle around Mitt Romney, where people in your party, Steve, will say you are hurting him with these comments, even though you are a conservative and you're staying true to your values. Some are trying to still sell Mitt Romney as a conservative, not perhaps the severe conservative that he referred to himself as, but a conservative.
Well, do I think Mitt Romney might be more conservative than President Obama? Yeah, but, you know, it's a little bit like saying, you know, I'm skinnier than King Kong Bundy. I mean, we're just talking about degrees here.
Okay.
We're not talking about principles. And if it's true and folks still don't like it, on my show, what we like to say is that's a you problem.
Okay, let me talk about this new poll, Michael, with you. New NBC News Wall Street Journal poll released just in the past hour. It shows Mitt Romney's favorability rating has risen to the highest level of a whopping 33%, but his still is net negative. 36% have negative view of him. He trails President Obama. 48% positive view of the president. 39% have a negative view of him. When you look at this silver spoon battle here, if someone doesn't like you or they think that there's just something about you for whatever reason, they don't want to have, as we like to say, that political beer with you at the bar, it is easy for the silver spoon to stay on you because they don't like you. You have this Thurston Howell III, as some have referred to Mitt Romney as, his critics, this caricature of him.
The new survey data comports with the New York Times research, so everybody seems to agree that the likability factor for Romney is somewhere close to 1/3, which is pretty unimpressive. But Tamron, the wallet, the almighty wallet, governs these races. I've always believed, and I think it's borne out in the information, that it's more important whether someone can provide shelter and put food on the table and have confidence about the economy than whether they want to have beer with. If it's a sound economy, if folks are not struggling, then the beer question matters. But you've got to be able to afford the beer. And so Romney needs the economy to just sort of sputter along. If it gets better,
which is absolutely
he loses
dastardly.
this issue.
That is dastardly for someone to need for others to hurt so that they can succeed. But with that said, and those are not his words, but I get your point of what you're saying. Let's look at Ohio. When the president was at that same community college in 2010, the unemployment rate was over 10%. Now he's back there yesterday, and I believe it is 7.6 in Ohio right now, Michael.
Yeah, I think that's good news, obviously, for the president, and it's a losing argument if Romney is all of a sudden forced into a position of saying, well, it would have come more quickly. People just want to know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. And, you know, one last observation. I don't know that in the end people are going to vote whether the unemployment rate is 8.2, whether it's 7.4. They've got to have confidence. There's a psychological factor out there that's hard to wrap your head around, but it's very important.
All right, Michael, I know you've got to get going to listen to the people on the radio and hear what they have to say. Thank you, Steve. I'll see you when you come back.